August 20th, 1941. The forests near Krasnogvardeysk, just outside Leningrad. The German Wehrmacht was slicing through Soviet defenses like a scalpel through flesh, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the city fell. Senior Lieutenant Zinoviy Kolobanov had been given orders that were essentially a death sentence. Hold the road with 5 KV-1 heavy tanks against the entire German advance. Stand to death if necessary. Kolobanov was not a typical Soviet officer. He had been convicted during the Winter War with Finland, stripped of rank, and sent to a penal battalion. He had clawed his way back through sheer competence, but the stain remained on his record. Now he had one chance to prove himself, and the odds were impossible. His gunner was Senior Sergeant Andrei Usov, a man his comrades called a tank sniper. Usov had fought in the Soviet-Polish War. He had survived the Winter War. He knew his gun the way a concert violinist knows their instrument, and on this morning, he would need every bit of that expertise. Kolobanov positioned his KV-1 in a concealed hull-down position, overlooking a narrow road flanked by impassable swamps. This was not improvisation. He had spent hours studying the approaches, identifying landmarks for range estimation, and selecting alternate firing positions. He had ordered his crew to pre-register 2 white birch trees marking the kill zone, exactly 800 meters from their position. When the first German tank reached those trees, the killing would begin. The sound came first, the distinctive clatter of tank tracks on cobblestones, growing louder. Then they appeared, a German armored column snaking down the narrow road. Panzer 35T light tanks, Czech-built vehicles now serving the Wehrmacht. 22 tanks in tight formation, exactly the kind of target distribution that tactical manuals warned against. But the Germans were confident. They had been destroying Soviet armor for weeks. They had no reason to expect what was waiting in the tree line. The lead tank reached the birch trees. Kolobanov's voice was calm. He ordered fire. Usov's first shot struck the lead Panzer perfectly. The tank exploded, blocking the road. The German column lurched to a halt. Confusion rippled through their ranks. They thought they had hit a mine. Before they could react, Usov fired again. The second tank died. 2 shots, 2 kills, and now the Germans knew they were being engaged. This is where Kolobanov made his brilliant tactical decision. Instead of working forward through the column, methodically killing each tank in sequence, he told Usov to shift fire to the rear. 4 rapid shots obliterated the last 2 tanks in the column. The Germans were boxed in. Swamps on both sides, burning wrecks front and rear, and somewhere in the forest, an invisible predator was destroying them. What followed was 28 minutes of surgical violence. Usov fired with metronomic precision, 1 shot every 30 to 60 seconds. This wasn't panic fire or spray and pray. Every round was a deliberate, aimed shot. The German crews tried everything. They attempted to maneuver off the road, but their light tanks immediately bogged down in soft ground. They deployed anti-tank guns, and Usov switched to high-explosive rounds, destroying the gun crews. They fired back desperately, and this is where the true horror began for the Soviet tank crew. Imagine being inside a steel box while enemy shells hammer against the armor. 156 hits. Each impact creates a sound like a cathedral bell struck with a sledgehammer. The noise alone is disorienting, deafening. Fragments of metal break off the interior. Armor and ricochet tear through the crew compartment, cutting faces and drawing blood. Powder gases from Usov's gun fill the turret, making it almost impossible to breathe. The temperature soars, and through it all, Usov keeps firing. The KV-1's armor was impervious to the German 37mm guns. The rounds simply bounced off or shattered against the heavy steel plate. But the crew did not know if the next hit might find a weak spot, might penetrate a vision port, might detonate ammunition. They held their position because those were their orders. Stand to death. Then disaster struck. An enemy shell jammed the turret traverse mechanism. The turret could not rotate. In any normal engagement, this would be a death sentence. A tank that cannot aim is already dead. But radio operator Pavel Kiselkov did something extraordinary. He climbed out of the tank onto the exterior of the hull, under fire, to restore vision. He remained inside the hull while shells were still impacting around him. He replaced a damaged periscope, giving Usov better visibility. The crew managed to partially free the traverse, enough to continue engaging targets from their prepared position. Usov kept firing. 98 armor-piercing shells left that 76mm gun. 98 careful, deliberate shots. Tank after tank erupted in flames. German crews began abandoning their vehicles, running for the swamps, dying in the marsh water or cut down by machine gun fire. Some tanks tried reversing at full speed, colliding with vehicles behind them. The column disintegrated into chaos. When the ammunition supply in Kolobanov's tank finally ran low, the battlefield had fallen silent. 22 German tanks were burning or disabled. Not a single one had escaped. The crew climbed out of their KV-1 and examined the damage. 156 impact marks scarred the armor. Every external fitting was damaged or destroyed. But the tank was still operational, and every crew member was alive. Kolobanov reported the engagement to headquarters. 22 tanks destroyed. His commander thought he was exaggerating, perhaps suffering from combat shock. You have to understand, this level of success was almost unprecedented. The High Command sent inspectors to physically count the wrecks. They confirmed every kill. 22 German tanks destroyed by a single KV-1 crew in under 30 minutes of actual firing time. Senior Lieutenant Zinoviy Kolobanov was nominated for Hero of the Soviet Union, the highest decoration the Soviet military could award. It should have been automatic. The action was verified. The results undeniable. The tactical brilliance clear. But the award was downgraded to the Order of the Red Banner. Why? That question haunts military historians to this day. Some say it was bureaucratic skepticism that persisted even after verification. Others point to Kolobanov's prior conviction during the Winter War, a permanent stain on his record that no amount of heroism could fully erase. Still others suggest that because Krasnogvardeysk ultimately fell to the Germans, there was political awkwardness in celebrating individual heroism within a strategic defeat. The truth remains unclear. Andrei Usov received the Order of the Red Banner for his gunnery. The rest of the crew were decorated, but the highest honor went to men whose actions were less spectacular, whose political records were cleaner, whose stories fit better into the propaganda narrative the Soviet Union needed during those desperate months. The action at Krasnogvardeysk represents something profound about armored warfare. Technology mattered. The KV-1's heavy armor created a window of invulnerability that would not last past 1942, once improved German guns arrived at the front. Tactics mattered. Kolobanov's pre-registered firing positions, his choice of terrain, his decision to box in the column by killing rear vehicles first all mattered. But ultimately, individual skill made the difference. Usov's ability to hit moving targets at 800 meters, to switch ammunition types mid-battle, to maintain accuracy while deafened and half-suffocated by powder gases, transformed tactical advantage into total victory. This is the reality of tank warfare that doctrine manuals can never fully capture. You can write perfect tactical procedures, position your forces optimally, maintain superior technology, but in the moment of engagement, everything depends on the man behind the gun. The crosshairs settling on target, the instant of trigger press, the assessment of hit or miss, kill or die. Those decisions happen in fractions of seconds, made by young men who are terrified but functional, exhausted but precise. Zinoviy Kolobanov survived the war. He never received the Hero of the Soviet Union award his action warranted. He lived until 1994, dying in Minsk, outlasting the Soviet Union itself. Andrei Usov's fate is less documented, but his 98 shots that morning near Leningrad remains one of history's most extraordinary displays of combat gunnery. The German tanks still lie in the forests near Krasnogvardeysk, or what remained of them after salvage operations. The road where they died has been paved over, widened, modernized. Nothing marks the location where one KV-1 crew achieved what should have been impossible. But the action report survives in Russian military archives. 22 confirmed kills, 156 hits sustained, 0 penetrations, 0 friendly casualties. One of the most one-sided anti-tank engagements in military history. Executed by men following standard doctrine with extraordinary precision, and almost forgotten by the nation they defended.